The Innocent Earthseer. On Norin, a young sheep anima girl named Laura was walking through the plains when she was stopped by three thugs named Tough Looking Hyuk, Cheeky Myung, and Licky Lips Yul, who demanded that she hand over her valuables. Author's note. These names made me viscerally uncomfortable, especially the last one. She willingly handed over her few coins and a rice ball, making the thugs feel uncomfortable about taking such a pittance from a young girl. However, they noticed a golden bell that she was carrying and told her to give it up. Laura told them that she couldn't hand it over, as she was on a journey to make the bell ring. She explained that her village was said to have a purpose that needed to be fulfilled. Some time ago, she had been led by land spirits, whom she called the Mountain Kids, to a building in their village, where she had encountered the bell. When the elders had discovered that the bell shined for Laura, they had told her that long ago they had once held trials to find the one with whom the bell would resonate, though they had given up after no one had been able to activate it. However, as the bell shined for Laura, they believed that she was the one who had been prophesied to make the bell ring again and fulfill the village's purpose. Meanwhile, in Norin village, a wolf anima named Gree was stopped by the magistrate's guards, who reminded him of his outstanding fees. Suddenly, a mountain kid appeared near Gree, who used its presence to warn the guards to back off unless they wanted to attack. Though he knew that the land spirit was harmless, after the guards ran off, Gree noticed that the land spirit was following him, and he was reminded of the last time that he had seen the land spirits with his brother, Grue, when he was younger. Author's note. I really wish that they picked a different name for his brother. I can't help but picture Grue from Despicable Me whenever they mention him. Gree then made his way to the outskirts of town, where he found the three thugs confronting Laura. Seizing the opportunity, he decided to con her into giving up her money by saving her from the thugs. However, the thugs realized what Gree was trying to do, and as they argued over who would get the money, the land spirit appeared before Laura, creating a strange glow that she recognized as being similar to the bell's warmth. The glow then flooded her with a new understanding of the spirits. As the thug advanced on Gree, Laura used her new command over the spirits in order to stop the fight. After the thugs retreated, Laura thanked Gree, who told her that it was just one anima looking out for another. Laura decided that they were now friends, and introduced herself to him. Gree reluctantly reciprocated, wondering to himself when the last time he had ever given his name out was, as most of Norin village only knew him as Street Wolf. Laura asked Gree if he could show her around town, to which Gree agreed, hoping to lower her guards so that he could swindle her. In town, Laura and Gree encountered a girl named Rami, whose kite had gotten stuck in a tree. To Gree's annoyance, Laura decided to help Rami and went to collect shoes from Sprout silkworms in order to throw at the kite. When her plan didn't work, Gree told her that they would need a ladder. Laura then asked Rami why she was flying a kite, to which Rami explained that she used to fly kites with her mother, who couldn't remember those moments anymore. Laura reassured Rami that people sometimes forget the important things in the chaos of life and resolved to find a ladder. They encountered a man named Silvergrass, who told them that his ladder was in his home, but that he couldn't go inside because he had lost a brooch, which he had gotten for his wife for their wedding anniversary, adding that he couldn't remember what it looked like either. Though Gree told her that trusting people blindly was foolish, Laura went in search of the brooch and found the carrot-shaped jewelry in the hands of the flower field bunnies. Once again, Gree recalled Grue, telling him that it wasn't bad to put his trust in other people. Laura presented the brooch to Silvergrass, who gave her the ladder in exchange. To Gree's amazement, Laura bravely climbed the ladder up to the roof, even though she had never climbed one before, as she was confident that Gree would catch her. When she slipped, Gree moved to catch her, but wind spirits suddenly appeared and stopped her fall. Laura then gave the kite to Rami, who promised never to get her kite stuck again in order to help her keep her promise. Gree taught her how to fly the kite properly. Gree then noticed Laura's bell and asked her about it. Laura explained that it was her village's treasure and that it meant a lot to her, even though the bell didn't ring. Seeing an opportunity to steal it, Gree offered to take the bell to a man who was good at fixing antiques. Since the man lived in a shady part of town, he offered to take the bell and bring it back to her. To his surprise, Laura readily trusted him and handed the bell over. Gree brought the bell to the sketchy merchant and asked how much the bell was worth. The merchant used a magic detector, which shattered immediately, indicating that the bell possessed tremendous magical power. He urged Gree to return the bell to its owner, explaining that its pristine condition meant that it was important to them. Recalling Laura's words about how much the bell meant to her, Gree felt guilty and decided to return it, though he fully expected her to have realized that she had been swindled. He returned to find her talking to the magistrate's guards, just as he expected. But as he came closer, he was surprised to find that Laura was arguing with the guards, telling them that Gree wasn't a street wolf like they claimed. After the guards left, Gree asked why she had handed the bell to him. When Laura explained that she trusted him as a friend, Gree came clean and told her that he had been trying to swindle her, and that he wasn't a good person. However, Laura told him that if he didn't believe her, then he ought to believe the spirits, explaining that they rarely approached anyone, let alone followed them, unless they were a good person. She added that though she called them kids, they knew more than her, especially about people's energies. She explained that the spirits were drawn to positive energy, which was like sunlight to them. Though Gree tried to argue that the spirits had made a mistake, Laura cited how he had run to catch her when she was falling off the ladder, and how he offered to teach Rami how to fly a kite, and how he came back to return the bell. Author's note: Laura is the greatest idea that Nexon has come up with in years. I'm so tired of all the generic edgy classes in the game, and Laura is like a breath of fresh air in contrast. I absolutely love her innocence and positivity, and her relationship with Gree is adorably cute. As Gree wondered himself why he had returned, Laura asked him why he didn't hide his anima features, explaining that her grandmother had taught her how to hide them, as they could sometimes scare people. Gree told her that he knew how to hide them, but he added that he didn't care if people saw, as they already called him Street Wolf. Laura then wondered how else they could look into the bell, as the merchant didn't know anything. Gree told her that the town had an antique shop, though there was a mountain of knickknacks to look through. They arrived at Granny Doom's antique shop, where Granny Doom confused Gree for his brother, Rue. She asked him if he was still trying to take back the antique that the magistrate had stolen, to which Gree reminded her that he wasn't Gru. While looking around the shop, Laura accidentally broke a bowl. To make up for it, Granny Doom asked them to find a toy that she had bought for her son. They found the toy amidst the flower wing monsters, but Gree noted that the toy was quite old. They returned to the shop, only to find her adult son, Naru, behind the counter. Naru explained that he had asked for the toy when he had been a kid, but his mother had lost it shortly before his birthday. To apologize for the confusion, Naru allowed them to pick anything from the shop, free of charge. While searching the shop, Laura and Gree encountered sun spirits, who presented a book to Laura. They opened the book, entitled The History of Mysticants, which had several pages torn out. From what they could make of it, Mysticants had been left in the world as a result of an unknown influence. They came in all shapes and sizes, making it difficult for ordinary people to recognize them, and they existed independently of mortals' wills. The Bell Mysticant, however, had been created for a specific purpose that set it apart from the others. Though the rest of the book was too torn to learn more about, they also found a note signed from the merchant prince of the back alleys, who had written that he had borrowed the missing pages. As they left the shop, Gree found it odd that Granny Doom couldn't remember him, even though she had been able to remember a much more distant memory of her son's toy. Author's note: several other people whom we'd helped in earlier quests also seemed to be suffering from unusual gaps in their memories, such as Rami's mother not remembering that she used to fly kites with her daughter, as well as Silvergrass being unable to recall what his wife's brooch looked like. While walking through town, they encountered the magistrate, who demanded that Gree pay his dues. As Laura argued with the magistrate, several river spirits drenched the magistrate, as well as the contract that he had made with Gree. Furious, the magistrate ordered his guards to arrest them. As Gree and Laura ran from the guards, a woman named Hannah helped them by hiding them in her studio. Hannah lied to the magistrate that she hadn't seen the two, to which the magistrate reminded her of their agreement, and that, as her art patron, he expected a new painting soon. After he left, Gree and Laura came out and thanked her. As Laura marveled at her paintings, Hannah invited them to come visit whenever they wanted. After they left, the guards found them once again, and the pair spent the next several days running and hiding. During their misadventures, the magistrate visited Hannah and threatened her to finish her paintings on time. She reminded them of her deal to only use one person per month for her plans, which the magistrate grudgingly agreed and left. Author's note, more on this later. Soon after, Laura and Gree ran into the three thugs whom they had met at the outskirts of the town, who pledged their loyalty to them. Recognizing Laura and Gree as the two people to have crossed the magistrate and gotten away with it, they explained that they had been inspired to rebel against the magistrate and wanted Laura and Gree to lead them. Gree immediately protested, claiming that he was a lone wolf and that he planned to leave the village once his debts were paid. Laura then remembered that they also owed a debt to Hannah and decided to visit her studio in order to thank her. There, Hannah told them a bit about the magistrate's visit earlier and how he had threatened to tear all of her paintings to shreds, since he wasn't satisfied by her latest work. Upon learning that Hannah had run out of paint, Laura offered to help collect the ingredients that she used to make it. As Laura headed out, Gree told her that he would go on his own to collect some of the ingredients, as he worked faster alone. While Gree collected white petals, Laura collected pink and yellow petals from the flower field bunnies and flower drift bunnies. Soon after, Laura returned to the studio, but found that Gree had not yet returned. As Laura watched Hannah paint, Hannah explained that she had been friends with Gree's father, who used to be a calligrapher with excellent brushwork. After he died, the magistrate had called back taxes on his estate and had taken everything that Gree and Gru had. Gru had been determined to recover a particular keepsake that the magistrate had stolen, and so had worked with Hannah in order to earn enough money to buy it back. When Laura asked if the brothers had been able to recover the keepsake, Hannah told her that soon after, Gree had had the worst day of his life when Gru had suddenly disappeared with all the money that they had, leaving Gree alone in debt. After hearing Hannah's story, Laura felt a surge of emotions and decided to go after Gree, who had just finished collecting all the white petals. Laura ran into him on his way back to town and told him that the reason why she believed in people was because her grandmother had once told her that as long as she had her faith, people would pull through in the way that she trusted them to. She promised Gree that the next time he was in trouble, she would help him through it. Just then, they were approached by the three thugs, who presented a business proposal in order to make money. To Gree's surprise, Laura seemed interested in the proposal, and when he asked why she needed the money, she explained that it was a secret. After learning that the thugs were attempting to swindle others, she told them to find a legitimate way to earn money, as they respected Laura for defying the magistrate. The thugs readily agreed. After the thugs left, Gree called Laura out for her naivety, explaining that morality wasn't black and white, as he and the other thugs swindled people in order to survive, rather than because they didn't know better. Laura acknowledged that she had been born in a happy home, but added that she was willing to learn about Gree's hardships if he explained. Uncomfortable from Laura's forwardness, Gree brushed it off, claiming that she didn't need to hear his sob story, and walked off. As Laura began to chase after him, she noticed a commotion on the streets and rushed over, thinking that Gree was involved. At the town square, Laura found the magistrate and his guards threatening Aerosol and her daughter Rami, the girl whose kite was stuck on the roof. The magistrate gave Aerosol one final warning to pay her taxes. After he left, Laura approached Aerosol and asked if she was in trouble. Aerosol explained that the magistrate levied exorbitant taxes on the townspeople, and that if they were unpaid, he would take their homes and kick them out to the back alleys. When Laura asked how she could help, Aerosol asked her to defeat the sprout silkworms and flower wings as they were stealing from the townspeople. After helping Aerosol, Laura continued to search for Gree. Sometime after Laura left to search for him, Gree arrived at the town square and encountered Aerosol and Rami. Aerosol thanked Gree for helping Rami with her kite, and added that even Laura had helped them a while back. She also apologized on behalf of the town for rejecting Gree, telling him that it wasn't his fault what had happened to him. She explained that the town was afraid of the magistrate, and so no one had reached out to care for him when he was left all alone. Gree was suddenly reminded of Laura's words about trusting others and the promise that she had made with him about helping him when he was in trouble. However, he shook the memory away and wondered why he was suddenly remembering it. After heading to the back alleys, he ran into the thugs, who told him that they wanted to give up swindling others to get back to their original livelihoods before the magistrate had kicked them to the streets. Gree told them that if they wanted their old lives back, they needed to take it for themselves, as they couldn't expect someone else to stand up for them. As he made his way back to the town streets, he ran into the magistrate, who began to insult Gree and his brother. Just then, Laura arrived and told Gree that she had learned a new trick from the mountain kids. Suddenly, there was a massive earthquake as Laura commanded the land spirits to shake the ground, causing the guards to retreat in fear. However, the earthquake abruptly stopped when the mountain kids fell asleep, making Laura sheepishly realize that she still needed to practice to maintain her connection to the spirits. However, she revealed that she had snuck the thugs. She had snuck the thugs and many of the townspeople through Hannah's studio, all of whom suddenly appeared and began standing up to the magistrate. Furious, the magistrate ordered Gree to call off the mob in exchange for telling him where to find his father's keepsake. However, Gree refused, telling him that he wouldn't allow the magistrate to pull any more strings. The magistrate then threatened Laura, claiming that she had no right to meddle as an outsider. Laura then pointed out that the land was all connected, meaning that she couldn't ignore injustice, no matter where it happens. Author's note: this reminded me of the MLK quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Suddenly, a river spirit appeared from the magistrate's clothes, and Laura revealed that she had created the earthquake as a distraction so that the spirit could steal the magistrate's storage key. After the magistrate was chased out of town, Laura and Gree went to the magistrate's storage room, though Gree told her that the keepsake wouldn't be there, as the magistrate had made it sound as though it was hidden somewhere else when they had chased him out of town. However, he noted with disgust how many treasures the magistrate had stolen in his never-ending greed. Laura told him that her grandmother used to say that such greed happened when wishes turned to obsessions. When Gree asked how one could know when the line had been crossed, Laura explained that it happened when one started wishing that things would go better for them over others. Gree then asked Laura what she would wish for, to which she told him that she would wish for him to be free. When Gree pointed out that they had already made it happen by chasing the magistrate out of town, Laura decided that her wish was then to be to make the hopes and dreams of the people who wanted the bell to ring to come true. She then realized that they ought to tell Hannah about what had happened, but Gree told her to go on ahead, as he wanted to help Laura learn more about the bell, since she had been too busy helping him. Once Laura left, Gree continued searching the storage room. One scroll in particular caught his eye, though he dismissed it as part of the magistrate's collection. At the Delboard studio, Laura thanked Hannah for allowing the townspeople to secretly pass through her studio in order to drive the magistrate away. Hannah told Laura that thanks to her, she was able to paint at her own pace, and asked if Laura could help her with, with it by collecting a special type of water from the sunlight-seeking spheres in the back alley. After bringing her the water, Hannah asked if Laura had learned more about the bell. Laura told Hannah that the bell was a special type of mysticant, which intrigued her. Just then, Laura remembered the note in the book that she had found and decided to investigate the back alleys. There, she met the sketchy merchant, who told her that he had thrown the missing pages away. Undeterred, Laura hunted down the pages from the gluey leaf flies over the next several days. Author's note: the next scene with Gree and Hannah mentions that Laura has been out for a few days, and that this is the only place where I could see her spending time, since everything else is just dialogue, which is why I mentioned that it took several days. After finding all the pages, Laura glued them together and realized that there had been an extra page from another book, which she held onto. Author's note: I don't think this is ever really explained. With the book restored, Laura learned that any sickness caused by a mysticant could only be cured by another mysticant, which was why the bell had been created in order to react with the other mysticants and purify their evils. Laura asked the merchant if he knew more about mysticants, since he had taken the book, but he replied that it was a secret. Laura then went after Gree, and as she left, the merchant breathed a sigh of relief that Laura was no longer around to keep prodding about his client. Author's note: it's not too clear in the GMS translation, but the KMS and MapleStory translation make it clear that mysticants are cursed objects, and that the Bell mysticant is unique because it was specifically created to destroy them. Laura's level 200 quest reveals that a group of people known as the Sinners locked themselves in the realm of the sages as punishment for the crime of having forsaken their humanity, where it's said that only the ringing of the bell can absolve them of their sins. The Odium storyline reveals that the bell was created by the researchers of Odium who hoped to stave off the corruption of the cyborg adversaries that they had created to fight the ancient gods eons ago. They explained that unlike adversaries created naturally, like the first explorer, adversaries made in Odium were created through brutal experimentation, as they were injected with drugs and their flesh was cut out and replaced with machinery, all for the purpose of making them compatible with the seal stones. However, the fatal flaw of their experiment was that the adversaries made in Odium would essentially lose their humanity, as their memories and bonds to others would be erased, leaving them an empty shell obsessed only with fulfilling their assigned destinies. After the defeat of the ancient gods, the overseers ordered the elders to abandon Odium, as it was the only way to cleanse the sin of the horrible things that had happened there. While they don't explicitly mention it, it's strongly suggested that the sinners are the researchers of Odium, who committed unspeakable acts of evil on their fellow humans for the sake of saving the world from the tyranny of the ancient gods, and that their redemption comes from the bell undoing the corruption on the adversaries that they had created. I absolutely love the moral complexity of what happened with the elders, as the horrible things that they did were the only possible way to stop a bigger evil, exactly like how the Black Mage's plan was the only possible way to save the world from the overseers. It really throws a wrench in the usual black and white perspective of earlier storylines by creating tragic heroes who had no other recourse but to put aside their morals in favor of the greater good, knowing full well that their personal sacrifices and struggles wouldn't ever be known to the world, as history will only ever remember them as villains, despite everything that they did to help the world. Back in the studio, Gree asked Hannah if she had seen Laura. Hannah mentioned that Laura had been out for a few days, likely trying to find a way to ring the bell. She also confided to Gree that Laura seemed to be obsessed with the bell, and that she seemed to be trying to hide it from Gree. He dismissed her concerns, claiming that Laura was an open book, to which Hannah told him that he had come to the studio, told him that he should come to the studio that night, as Laura had something special planned. Sometime after Gree left, Laura arrived and told Hannah that the bell reacted to evil mysticants. When Laura asked if Gree was okay, Hannah told her that Gree was planning to leave town soon and suggested that she leave him alone, as he had been through a lot. Hannah then told her that she had an idea on how to ring the bell and asked Laura to come later that evening. When Laura arrived later on, Hannah showed her a paintbrush with which the bell was subtly resonating. Hannah told her that the bell's resonance meant that the brush was an evil mysticant, and so they needed to destroy it. She asked Laura to set fire to the brush while holding onto the bell, explaining that it would destroy the mysticant. Just then, Gree arrived and was shocked to find Laura burning the paintbrush, which was actually his father's keepsake. Devastated and furious at Laura's apparent betrayal, he stormed off, upset at himself for believing Laura's speeches about trust. After Gree left, Laura felt utterly alone and realized that even the spirits had abandoned her. Hannah explained that because Laura's heart had been broken and she had lost her innocence, the land spirits would not be drawn to her, as they only appeared before the pure of heart. She then revealed that the brush was completely unharmed, as mysticants couldn't be destroyed in such a manner, and that the brush had the power to gouge out happy memories and paint them onto a canvas. Due to her arrangement with the magistrate, she would take a memory from one person every month in order to paint it for the magistrate, which was why so many people in town were missing crucial memories. Back in the village, Gree was brooding when the spirits began to flock around him and drew him towards the antique shop, where Granny Doom gave him a stuffed wolf doll that he had asked Grue to buy long ago, explaining that Laura had saved up enough money to buy it for him. Inside the wolf's mouth, Gree found a letter from Grue, which explained that the reason why Grue had been trying so hard to find the keepsake was because he had realized that the brush was an evil mysticant and that needed to be destroyed. Realizing that Laura hadn't betrayed him, he rushed to the magistrate's storage room, where he opened the scroll that had caught his eye earlier. Inside, he found a painting of himself with Grue playing with the land spirits. Gree realized that the fact that he remembered that moment was because it had come from the fact that he didn't remember that moment was because it came from Grue's memory, meaning that his brother hadn't abandoned him, but rather he had been kidnapped by the magistrate and Hannah. Gree rushed back to the studio, where Hannah was demanding that Laura give her the bell. Just then, Gree arrived with the spirits and reaffirmed his trust in Laura, who realized that the spirits hadn't left her heart, but that her heart had left them. Having made her heart whole once again through her renewed faith, Laura regained her affinity with the spirits and used her powers to fight Hannah. However, the evil energies of the Mysticant strengthened Hannah, who easily defeated both Laura and Gree. As Hannah moved to kill them both, Laura offered herself and all her happy memories in exchange for Gree's life. Realizing that Laura had countless happy memories, as well as the fact that she was an outsider whom no one would ask around for, Hannah eagerly agreed. As Gree tried to stop Laura from sacrificing herself on his behalf, the bell resonated with both their strong desires to put the other forward, causing it to ring with an ethereal note. Its warm glow destroyed the brush mysticant and erased both Hannah and all her paintings. The next morning, Laura and Gree walked through town as Gree explained that his brother had gone to pay the magistrate when he had been kidnapped for Hannah's paintings. However, he told her that he was ready to let his brother go and asked where Laura would go next. Author's note: I really hope that Grue is actually alive. All the other people in the village whose memories were taken are still alive, but the fact that he was kidnapped might mean that all his happy memories were taken one by one until he either died or was left an empty shell. Laura explained that though she wasn't sure, she was confident that traveling would help her uncover the mysteries of the bell. She asked Gree if he would come with her, but he replied that he wasn't sure what his purpose was with his newfound freedom, and asked for some time to figure it out before he reunited with her. After saying their goodbyes, Laura continued on her way when she encountered the shady merchant, who hailed her as the hero of Norin. He told her that the shadow dealers knew nearly everything that happened in Grandis, and so they would likely be able to help her with the bell. He gave her a letter of introduction and directed her to the Savage Terminal in order to meet with Gen. As she headed out of town, the merchant's client, Kaling, appeared and told him that his actions had disrupted her plans. Author's note: I'm guessing that Kaling learned that the brush was a mysticant and wanted to collect it before it was destroyed. She probably blames him because he gave Laura the information about mysticants, which led to the paintbrush's destruction. However, she told him that she was willing to change the deal and asked if the bell was a mysticant. The merchant told her that he couldn't divulge his client's information, though Kaling bribed him into revealing everything he knew about Lara and the bell. Laura soon arrived in Savage Terminal and met with Coney, who introduced her to Cadena. Upon showing her the letter of introduction, Cadena grew furious and used her chain to tear it up, telling Coney that the letter was a contract with Mr. Hazard. Suddenly, Gen arrived and diffused the situation. After Cadena stormed off, Gen apologized for her behavior and explained that there had been a recent power struggle between the shadow dealers, and though Gen had tried to clean up afterwards, the letter had seemed to slip by them. He took her back to his hideout, where he explained that Cadena was angry because Mr. Hazard had attempted a terrorist attack on the city. As the shadow dealers dealt in equal transactions, he offered to tell her anything that she wanted to know as reparation for Cadena's behavior. Laura asked about the state of Grandis and learned that the anima had vanished. She also learned about the transcendence of Grandis, as well as the overseers, who were said to have created the three worlds. Author's note. This directly conflicts with the fifth job advancement questline, which states that the goddesses sculpted the three worlds after the fall of the ancient gods. However, it makes a lot more sense for the overseers to have created these three worlds by separating them out from their shared dimensions into three separate dimensions, and so I'd consider this to be the canon over the explanation about the goddesses. Additionally, Gen told her about the interdimensional portal that led to Maple World, where Laura hoped to learn more about the bell. When Laura asked if he knew about the bell, Gen told her that their trade didn't cover restricted information, as it was beyond the scope of their equal transaction. When he offered to sell the information at an exorbitant price, Laura told him that she didn't have that kind of money and thanked him for his help. She then went to Pantheon, where Tyr and Kyle met her at the outskirts at Fennel's instructions. Author's note, I call her Tyr here because she isn't in her angelic buster form. They escorted her to the great temple, where Fennel looked into Laura's heart in order to determine whether she was worthy of using the interdimensional portal or not. Fennel sensed that Laura had a strong will and fully trusted others, which she considered to be both admirable and rare. Having passed Fennel's test, Laura arrived in Maple World, where she was greeted by Grendel the Really Old, who had sensed the energy of her mysticant and invited her to Alinea, as he was studying similar powers there. After she presented the bell, Grendel thought to himself that the bell had been created in antiquity by an ancient deity or something comparable. He then offered to introduce her to Athena Pierce and Hennesis, who could help her on her journey. Athena suggested helping others during her travels in order to gain more experience in the Maple World. Author's note, Athena then gives the standard talk about the 4 theme dungeons. Sometime after she began her journey, a sun spirit brought her a letter from Gree, who told her his theory that the bell had rung because of their willingness to sacrifice themselves, rooted in the thought that each other was more important than the other. This understanding helped her grow closer to the spirits, thus increasing her powers.